Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to Water Wednesday. My name is Yiling Zhuang. I'm the Water Resources Regional Specialized Agent in University of Florida IFAS Extension. So if this is the first time you tune in Water Wednesday, you may wonder, what is Water Wednesday? So for Water Wednesday, it is a Facebook Live series about Florida's water resources. Every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, we will provide a science-based, research-based talk about Florida's water. And today's Water Wednesday, we have our guest speaker from Florida Automated Weather Station. He's the project manager, Rick Lesher. So if you miss our last few Water Wednesdays, because the last few Water Wednesdays, we focus on irrigation, about your irrigation system, what is an irrigation system, and how to calibrate your irrigation system. We even talk about rain sensors. If you miss those Water Wednesdays, you can go to the YouTube channel to watch these informative videos. For today's Water Wednesday, so we invited Mr. Rick just to show us how we can use their weather data to optimize our irrigation schedule, or just for a simple word is what we can do to save our precious water resources. Now I will give the floor to Rick, and he will share with us what is a Florida Automated Weather Station. Thank you, Rick.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Yiling, I appreciate the invitation to come and speak this afternoon. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to share my screen in just a minute, and I'm going to give a fairly brief but somewhat detailed overview of our website, because that's really where you would go to access everything that we have to offer that can help you with irrigation scheduling and other things. And so the easiest thing for me to do is simply show you exactly where to go to get that information, in addition to telling you about it. And so let me do that here. All righty, so okay, so again, FAWN is the Florida Automated Weather Network, as Yiling just stated, and I'm going to show you data and tools for effective decision making. And so I'm going to talk about, just give a brief overview of the program itself, and then I'll go into the specific web pages and the products and so on that we have. So first of all, let me show you where we have weather stations. And so as Yiling said, we're the Florida Automated Weather Network. And so what that means is that we have automated weather stations all over the state. And you can see this map here. It shows you with an orange dot everywhere that we have weather stations around the state. And as you can see, we have 42 of them. Each of them takes a number of measurements and also does some calculations every 15 minutes. And then it disseminates those measurements to our website. And along with, again, the calculations and other things that we do. So anytime you would go to our website and look at the data, you would have measurements that are just maybe 10 or 15 minutes old at the oldest. We do routine maintenance, and this is just a little bit of background about our operations. We perform routine maintenance every 8 weeks to our stations. We do quite a bit of data quality control, in that we have automated computer-based routines that go through and check the measurements each day to make sure that each measurement is within a certain range. We compare, say, temperatures from one station to the stations close by to make sure that they're within a reasonable value, reasonable values of each other. And then we also test our sensors annually to make sure that they're within factory specifications. And so I say all that to basically say that a lot of the work that we do is to make sure that our data are of good quality. So this is an example of what one of our weather stations looks like. It is a 30-foot tower with the sensors placed up and down the tower at various heights. And we do that so that the National Weather Service can use our measurements as well. And so, for example, a National Weather Service weather station is also a 30-foot tower. And at the top of that tower is the wind sensor. It measures wind speed and direction. And so we also put our wind sensor at the top of a 30-foot tower. And that lets the National Weather Service bring in our data and put it beside theirs to use for whatever they want to do with it, forecasting, summaries of variables, and that sort of thing. And this particular station, I don't know where you are about in the state, but is located at the UF Research Farm in Citra off Highway 318. And so that's what one of the stations looks like. So what do we do? So anybody can take weather measurements. As you probably know, and as you might actually do, you can put a weather station in your backyard, and you can measure lots of different things. And if you even connect that station to the internet, you can upload your measurements to places like Weather Underground and other websites where different government agencies can access the data and use it. And so we do the exact same thing with our data, but a lot of the work that we do is focused on doing things with the data that can help people, just like the title of my presentation says, make effective decisions for different things. And so we provide the data and forecast. Now, we don't actually do our own forecasts, but we bring in forecast data from the Weather Service, and I'll show you some examples of that in a few minutes. And so we let them stick to doing the forecast because that's what they do, and we just are sometimes the messenger for those forecasts. And so if you're looking at the forecast on our website, we're just providing that from the Weather Service. And I mentioned the data already as well. A lot of the work that we have done, we've been in existence for about 25 years, and we kind of started for helping growers with cold protection. And so a lot of the work that we've done during that 25 years has been in the area of cold protection for various crops like citrus and blueberries and some others as well. And so if you happen to be browsing our website, you'll see quite a bit of information there related to freeze protection and cold protection. Irrigation is also another area that we do a lot of work in. And then we also, and I'm going to show you some more specific examples of that in a minute, and then chemical application as well. And what that means is we have a forecast tool where growers, say if they're considering going out and spraying chemicals on their crops, they can look at this forecast tool and it will show them a wind speed and rainfall forecast for the next few days. And then they can use that to determine when the conditions are expected to be optimal for spraying. And it just lets them make the most informed decision they can when doing that. So here's our home page, and at the very end of the talk, I'll give you the web address. So don't worry about that right now, about writing that down or anything. So if you go to our home page, and we recently redesigned our website. So if you happen to be someone that's familiar with our website and you've used it in the past, you might notice that it's been different. Interestingly, pretty shortly after we kind of all went home because of COVID, we had already planned to release it in like mid-April. And so we just thought, why not go ahead with that? We'll go ahead and do that. And So you may have noticed a difference since then. But we've added quite a bit of new technology to the website in terms of the way things are displayed and the interactive nature of the website, and then just also kind of freshened up the look and feel a little bit as well to partly go along more with the University of Florida's general template for websites and use of colors and things like that. So on the homepage here, you can see a map of Florida, and the web page will, if you let it, it will use your location services to kind of zoom you into the stations that are closest to your location. And it'll even show a little dot on there that will show your current location. And then over on the left, you can see if you want to see different parameters on the map, you can click through different parameters such as dew point, wind speed and direction, rainfall, and so on down the list. And then also, if you want to look at some different layers on the map, like radar, for example, is shown on there now. You can also display the county boundaries, and you can also display a map of the previous day precipitation, and that is using a high resolution rainfall data set that we get from Oregon State that'll show you a map that looks kind of like the radar, but it gives you amounts from the previous day. And so that's kind of a neat thing. You know, if you look at the radar and then you also look at the places we have weather stations, you know, there can be 50, 100 miles sometimes between weather stations in some locations, but that previous day precipitation is on like a 4-kilometer grid, which is just a few miles. And so it will give you precipitation from the previous day that looks more like the radar images. So it gives you real detailed information. Across the top of the map there is access to the different data products and tools that we have. And so I'll get to that in just a second. Scrolling down to the bottom of the page, you can see some links to some of the more frequently used tools that we have. So for example, latest observations is kind of a tabular view of the latest observations from all of the stations. Graphical weather data is simply a graph of the previous 7 days of several different parameters. And then there's some other links there as well that you can look at. But these, again, are at the bottom of the page, and these are kind of the most frequently used links on the web page. So if you go across the top of the home page there, data access is the first link. And if you want to access any of our data that's archived, this is where you would want to go. So if you're one of those people that likes to look at numbers, maybe likes to look at graphs of data and things like that, greater than 7 days, because we have the graphing tool for the previous 7 days, this is a place that you would go to get that. So the air temperature threshold shows you the number of hours that a station was above or below a user specified temperature over a specified period of time. If you've ever heard the term chill hours or chill accumulation, that gives you similar information to that calculation. Chill hours is technically a calculated value, but the air temperature threshold can give you hours that are similar to that. Graphical weather data, well, I just mentioned, lets you graph the previous 7 days worth of data. The report generator is where you would go if you want to download data. And so let's say a station, you want to look at the average temperature over the last year or something like that. You would go there to select the station. It's a real simple form that you fill out, and you can click to either download in CSV format for spreadsheets, or you can look at data right on the screen. If you're a programmer, Data feeds is the place for you. You can go, and if you know how to program, which I don't, you can program in different formats to automatically retrieve data every 15 minutes or whatever. A lot of researchers at UF that are doing modeling do that sort of thing. So they have the data coming in on a routine basis automatically, and they don't have to go manually download it. And then if you want large amounts of archive data, then we recommend using our uh, FTP link, which lets you download data from stations in annual increments. And so it's a year's worth of data. And so those files are arranged by year. So that's where you would go if you want to get large amounts of data. So going back to the home page, we're going to go right across, continue right across the top of the page. Tools has quite a few links, and you can see the different areas that we work in. I mentioned coal protection already and irrigation. Climate is one of the links that we don't do directly any work with climate at FON, but there is a group at UF called Agroclimate that does. And so FON is kind of what's going on right now or in the next few days. Agroclimate does a lot of seasonal work. So they do climate outlooks, and they have disease related tools and models and that sort of thing. And so we link to them, and they use some of our data and some of their calculations, and then they link back to us as well. So those are the different areas that we work in. And then more is just, you know what that is. It's just a lot of supplemental information about the website and the program and that sort of thing. And so, so moving right along, if you mouse over or click one of the measurements on the station, so in this case, the 77 there right above Gainesville, that station is up in Alachua, and you can see over to the right, some of the measurements appear. And again, that'll happen if you mouse over or click on that station. And so you get kind of the ones that most people look at initially when they're going to look at a weather observation, like what's the temperature, what are the winds, was there any rainfall, and that sort of thing. And then if you click more, you can see more there at the, then that takes you to what we call the station page. And so you can still see Alachua there at the top. And that gives you all of the measurements from the station at Alachua from the previous observation, which would be, like I said, 15 minutes ago or so. And you have all the different measurements there at the top. And then at the bottom, you have this week forecast, which is actually 2 lines. And you can scroll down a little bit further to get to that. And then over on the left-hand side, you have all of the different calculations and products that apply, that use the data from that station. And so I'll go through those real quickly. The graphical data, again, you can go up to the last 7 days of several different measurements and look at those on a graph. You can look at a graphical forecast of several parameters, and you can see those in the drop-down box there. Again, we bring in the forecast data. We don't do the forecast ourselves. Any applicable weather advisories that pertain to that station will be under weather advisories, and there could be multiple ones. And so you might have anything from just a statement, like this is just kind of an outlook. There might be a statement about something, anything up to severe storms and hurricanes and anything like that. Anything that's applicable to that station will be right on this page. And if there are multiple advisories, there will be tabs across where it says hazardous weather outlook. You have multiple tabs across there where you can click on each of those. Chill Portion is a tool that we developed primarily for blueberry growers that is similar to chill hours that I mentioned a few minutes ago, and it helps them with some seasonal planning. The coal protection, as I mentioned a minute ago, this is a suite of tools that help growers that use water for freeze protection on cold nights. And there are like 5 different decision-making tools that all appear on this page. And you can scroll down to the bottom of this page to see the complete list. We have several different crop irrigation schedulers, and you can see across the top there, citrus, strawberry, vegetable, and row crop. And we also have a couple of other that are related to landscape that I'm going to show you in just a minute. And then at the bottom there, location info just tells you where that station's located and that sort of thing. So in the irrigation tab, so remember when I moused over tools and it had cold protection, irrigation, and climate. If you mouse over irrigation, I think I may have just gotten this a little bit out of order, but that's okay. In that list is evapotranspiration. All of our irrigation schedulers are evapotranspiration or ET based. And basically that is the amount of water that's leaving the surface in a given day. And so as you know, rainfall is water coming in. ET is a calculation that tells you how much water is going out. And so you can look at ET over the last 7 days at all of our stations on this page, and then also look at a daily average. And then at the top there, it says 14-day graph. If you click on that, you can look at a graph of the measurements over the previous 14 days. And then also you can look at the rainfall as well. And so really this graph right here is a very rudimentary irrigation scheduler, in that you can look at the ET for a given day, you can look at the rainfall for a given day. And in a very, very basic sense, if the ET's been greater, that means that you might need to water a little bit. If the rainfall has been greater, then that might mean that you don't need to water. And so that's the kind of logic that we use, although the crop irrigation schedulers are substantially more complicated than that, because they have crop coefficients and different things like that, and soil types and so on. We use this type of a system in our schedulers. And so again, under that irrigation subheading is the urban irrigation scheduler. And that is kind of a landscape / turf irrigation scheduler that we developed with some researchers at UF several years ago. And it basically does what that graph I just showed you does. It just gives you a very simple water balance. And it says that if ET has been greater than rainfall over the last week, then you shouldn't need to turn on your water. If I said that backward. If ET has been greater, then you might want to turn on your water. If rainfall has been greater, then you might not need to turn it on. So we give you an on or off recommendation in this table. And what you would do there at the beginning is you put in your zip code, and then it takes you down to the closest stations that are to that zip code, and it gives you the values there. Now we realize there are some limitations to this tool, in that if the farm station is some distance away from you, the rainfall from that station might not be perfectly applicable to your location. But we developed it somewhat of a starting point for making better decisions. And so there are some more sophisticated versions of this. In fact, I'm going to show you an app in a few minutes that you can download that is a much more sophisticated version of this tool. And it does provide rainfall measurements that are closer. So I think I heard Yiling say a minute ago that you've talked about calibrating your irrigation systems. If you haven't done that and you want to do that, then if you look at the bottom of that irrigation subheading, you'll see an application rate worksheet. And this is a screenshot of that sheet. It's a PDF file that's just 1 page long, and you can use it to organize your calculations for doing your calibration of your irrigation system. And then at the bottom of that table, I cut it off for the screenshot here, but the bottom of the sheet, there is a table that kind of tells you based on the application rate that you calculate, how long you need to run your system to get that amount of water out. So that is the list of irrigation tools that we have primarily for landscape users. Again, we do have crop irrigation schedulers. If you do any growing, please do take a look at those. But if you want to get more into the turf irrigation, again, I mentioned the urban irrigation scheduler a minute ago. There's a really cool app that Agroclimate developed called Smart Irrigation Turf. And it is available in both iOS and Android formats. So if you go to that respective app store, you can do a search for it. And it is really neat. And if you're really into the technology and all, you'll really like this app because you can schedule different zones, or you can evaluate different zones of your irrigation system. And it does things like gets the rainfall values that are close to your location. It gives you forecasts for your location. It lets you put in the type of technology that you're using, and then it will give you a weekly report. Based on the information you put in, what have your savings been or not if you happen to be using more. So I highly recommend this app. There's a little bit of setup to it, but once you get it set up, it pretty much runs itself. So that's a really neat resource. And we're hoping to one day maybe put something like this on our website as well. But the app is really, really neat. So one other quick thing, and I'm getting pretty close to being done here. So I hope everybody's still awake, especially it being right after lunch. But at the bottom of the homepage, there was a link to a program called My Florida Farm Weather. And if you click on that link, that takes you to a page that is kind of similar to our homepage, but we are involved with the Florida Department of Agriculture in a program where they are helping farmers establish weather stations on their farms, and we are collecting and managing the data for those stations. And part of that program is us putting the data on our website. And so that My Florida Farm Weather will take you to this page, which shows you a map. Again, it's kind of like the one on the homepage. It lets you look at some different parameters there on the right. And if you click on a station, it shows you the current measurements, and you can look at graphs, forecasts, different calculated tools and things like that. And that program also has an app. And so if any of you have the question, does Fawn have an app? Well, we don't have an explicitly Fawn app, but this My Florida Farm Weather app shows the Fawn stations on it. So if you wanted to go search for that, again, for both iOS and Android platforms, and download it, you can look at all of the Fawn stations on that app, and you can look at graphs, you can look at a forecast, and you can also look at some of these calculations that I mentioned before. And so that's an option. So the main reason I told you about this program was in case you were asking about the app, because you can go look at that app and get our stations on there. And so I always like to thank our sponsors. We're a UF program, like Eileen mentioned, but we get about 70% of our funding from external sources, several of which are the water management districts, the NOAA, which is the parent organization for the National Weather Service, and also the Florida Department of Ag. And I will end with our web address in case anyone would like to write that down. And then I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. So I'll start my, I'll leave that for a second, but then I'll start my video back up just in case.
Thank you, Rick. That's very informative. I didn't know from the website. You just revised the website because now it looks so different. And I just want to let you know.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I was just no, that's okay. I was just going to say that yeah, we've just kind of wanted to bring it up to some of the newer programming standards and again the look and feel of the other UF websites and some of those things. And
Yeah, that's great. And I shared the I also shared a link on the Facebook page. I'm
okay,
looking at the Facebook page now. At this point, we don't have any question or comments, but I know
okay,
they're about 10 seconds delay between because
right,
we are using Zoom to broadcast on Facebook Live. So I'm still waiting, see if we have more questions coming up. And I
okay,
also want to say it's for the viewers, we have a few live viewers. So if you can comment, you can just put where you are living, like which city or which county, or even just which part or which state you are from in the comment section. It will be very helpful. And just
right,
like Rick said at the end of his presentation, because the whole project is sponsored by the water management districts and different agencies. So one of his job reporting requirement is like he has to report back to these agencies, like where like people from where they have reached. So if you
mhm,
can share that info with us, we really appreciate that, and we promise we'll keep it confidential. Um,
right,
and if you have any questions, feel free to post it here. And during the presentation, Rick did mention it's the catch can calibration sheet. That's a really good reminder because for our calibration video, we didn't go through that part. I think we show you the video how to do that. Some may feel like because if you are not a number person, if you are not as nerdy as I am, because I get excited just seeing those numbers. I'm like, oh yes, I love math. But I know most of people they just feel like headache when seeing numbers like that. That sheet, the calibration sheet, is great because you don't have to do any math. So it will walk you through like how much water you are using now and how much you need to reduce to. So if you like that, please also leave in the comment. If we have enough interest, I will write a blog and also post it on Facebook. Okay, let me look at the Facebook now. Oh, thank you, Miss Christina. Christina said she's from Hudson, Florida. And Miss Nancy, it's from Montanura, also in Florida, or in Central.
oh yeah, great. Thank
Great.
you for that.
Yeah, thank you for the info. We don't have questions now, but like I
Okay,
said, you have any questions, you can always leave your questions on our comment section. And when we see these questions, we will get back. I will ask Miss Rick for the answer and get back to you. So I think
good.
we will just close today's Water Wednesday here. So thank you everyone for your time and thank you Mr. Rick for your informative presentation. And we
My
look
pleasure.
forward to seeing all of you on our Water Wednesdays next week. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesdays. Bye now.